You're listening to NIL Now, a podcast dedicated to the name, image, and likeness of today's college and high school athletes.
So we're going to explore the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness.
NIL Now, covering the latest sports business headlines and keeping you informed on the nation's top performers. This is NIL Now, where the stars of tomorrow are getting noticed today.
It's the Wild Wild West, but we're wrangling it in.
Presented by Headline Studio and Reddit. Here are your hosts, Lauren Zisler and Kevin Jones.
Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of NIL Now, a production of Headline Studio and Reddit. We are out wherever you listen to your podcast, so be sure to subscribe. Later on, we'll talk to Cara Lewis of Virginia Tech volleyball team, so stick around for that interview. She's got some great insight for us. Looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I bring in my friend, my confidant, Kevin KJ Jones.
What up? You better have said KJ today.
I got to make sure, because I got lectured on the fact that I didn't use KJ before, because when you say Kevin, it's just a little too direct. It's like he's being punished or something, right?
My wife called me Kevin. I know it's a little bit more serious. Or my mom calls me Kevin. It's a little more serious.
Okay.
NIL headlines.
Let's talk a little Arch Manning. College football fans got their first look at Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns offense at Texas' spring game earlier this month. So Arch Manning was the former number one overall recruit out of high school, preparing for his freshman season at Texas. He completed 5 of 13 pass attempts in the scrimmage, which I know a lot of people are like, ooh, that's so cringy. But let's be real. You're entering into a new system. There's a lot happening. It's a spring game. You're obviously in a quarterback competition. There's so many variables. We know spring games don't necessarily measure up to a whole lot. But with that being said, Quinn Ewers went on to pass, 16-23 for 195 yards and a touchdown. And since then, Texas coach Steve Sarkisian has named Ewers the starting QB in what was a post-game press conference. Take a listen real quick, and then I'm going to get you a weigh-in, KJ.
Sometimes, we can rush to judgment on where guys are at. I think it's pretty clear to say, Quinn's our starting quarterback, and we feel very good about that.
All right, so bottom line is, Kevin, KJ, sorry. As a result, Manning's On3 NIL valuation dropped $362,000 to $3.4 million, according to On3. Manning is still rated the number 3 overall on the NIL top 100 behind only Bronny James and Livy Dunn. So he's still spiking those numbers at a lovely $3.4 million, though when you lose $362,000, woo, I'd be curious to know kind of what goes into that, because I don't think we have a lot of intel as to what those NIL deals are. But just your thoughts on what this does for a quarterback with all the hype coming in. His NIL valuation is what it is. And then, of course, he's not going to get named the starting quarterback. Are you surprised at all?
Well, the results of this On3 thing surprises me a little bit, but at the same time, we don't know what that evaluation actually means. I mean, we know that it means dollars and cents, but we don't know why is it dropping down 300,000, specifically why. We don't know that. So that's a little bit of surprising. But, freshman quarterback comes in, he is a Manning, so it's a little surprising about the performance, but at the same time, I think he gets a pass. He's a freshman. He's not going to be everything all the time. So, high school is different than college. They got a pretty good team out there. I don't know. I think that coach, slipped that in, just to kind of get in front of the quarterback controversy talks. I think that gives both quarterbacks a little bit of breathing room. One, not too much expectation is on the freshman. And then 2, you got the starter. Let him kind of have that role until we see what competition happens, throughout the remainder of the summer. Going up into, the football season. You never know what happens. So both of them are, college quarterbacks at a top level. I guess he completed less than half of his passes, but, who knows if the starting offensive linemen were in there. Was it against the starting defense? Did the receivers, run the wrong route? Timing. There's so many different things that happens. It's happened at our spring game at Virginia Tech where we saw some interceptions and stuff out there, but it's not always the quarterback's fault. So when I came in as a freshman, I probably could have started right out the gate, but we had Lee Suggs, who was an upperclassman, one of the top running backs in the nation. I think he was a touchdown champion and stuff like that. So I didn't get this starting job until he kind of got hurt. And even right after that, I wasn't the starter until like two games in. Coaches getting comfortable with the play calling, making sure that, the best players are on the field. But sometimes the best players aren't always on the field because they need to learn a little bit more. So there's a lot of factors here. We'll see. He's a man and he'll prevail. It's in the blood.
It's in the blood. And I think you're right. With these spring games, it's just people throw so much on them sometimes. Oh, man, like he didn't look good or this or that, and that was awful. But there are so many variables. We don't know anything about, ones and twos and who he was going up against. I think the biggest question here, though, is what that $362,000 valuation means, especially because he's not announced yet publicly his first NIL deal. So the fact that we don't even really know what that number means and why it exists is probably the bigger question in all of this. But as you said, it's a Manning. He will go on.
That's probably some factor that On3 has in their code that it's a part of it is a fan thing. If the fans are down on you, then that number comes down a little bit probably. But I'd be interested to see how that sliding scale goes back and forth, because that's a pretty significant number, and it's very specific. It's not like a range.
Yeah, like 362.
Right. I mean, it's cool to actually have that though. Like we have that as a barometer for us to talk about, and your performance wasn't that good, so it came down. But then at the same time, it's like, hey, this NCAA, it's not a pay-for-play thing. But at the same time, you have like things like this. So
we're skating the line here, KJ. We're skating the line.
Interesting. But I still think, no fault to On3. I think they're still doing their job, keeping everybody informed and putting some stuff out there that we can at least, grab on and talk about. So I'm cool with it, I guess, for now.
We're going to shift over to another Texas school in this next headline. The Texas A&M Aggies. I love this. So I don't know if you got to watch the Masters. I always enjoy watching it. It's always the weekend of my husband's birthday. So usually I'm stuck at home watching on the couch. Last year I did get to go, but nevertheless, Sam Bennett, fifth-year senior at Texas A&M on the golf team there, was the amateur that competed in the Masters earlier this month. For once, we're not talking about John Daly II, because obviously he was someone we talked about earlier on the show couple months ago when we were talking about his advertising, his commercial deal that he did with his very outspoken, eclectic father, that is John Daly. But Bennett ended up finishing tied for 16th, although he was at the top of the leaderboard or hovering around there, and definitely showing a peak performance throughout the tournament, and then obviously fell back to 16, but still amazing. Was able to garner a lot of attention, a lot of respect throughout the tournament. Obviously, the Masters being the most coveted golf tournament that there is. And in theory, here's the deal. He would have made $261,000 had he have been able to accept that money, for his performance. But as an amateur, obviously that not being the case. But however, after the tournament, Bennett signed an NIL deal with T-Mobile in which he will promote the company on social media and appear at public events. And that deal will, at this point, currently expire at the end of his college career. I think that's pretty cool. You don't get to capitalize on that, but where in the history of college athletics would you now get to sign a deal and really, in many ways, probably recoup some of that money that you technically would have lost? And, now's the time to strike while the iron's hot. He's a hot name. He was out there front and center. A lot of people talking about him, obviously, and like I said, in this setting. And why not capitalize on that and make a little living as you're continuing your college career and getting ready to go pro?
I think it's good for Sam for sure. T-Mobile stepping up. I think the story behind this is interesting. It makes this situation a little bit better. I feel like this is cool for T-Mobile to step up and do something like this, because they definitely didn't have to. But the story becomes bigger. T-Mobile's name and brand gets a little larger as far as people talking about it and being able to kind of peer into the situation and see what this is all about. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I wish, more companies step up like this for situations, especially in the international realm. For the international athletes can't get paid in name, image, and likeness unless they're at home. So T-Mobile or some other companies, maybe over in Europe, could do something similar like this for the international students. But kudos to them. I think this is dope.
NIL Now with Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
If you want to learn more about name, image, and likeness, you need to go to The Source. The NIL Now podcast from Headline Studio and Reddit highlights the biggest storylines.
NIL is not a cherry on top. It needs to be a part of these young men and women's future to, further their careers. You should be able to leave college with something.
Subscribe to NIL Now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Alrighty then, time now to bring in our good friend and confidant, Bobak Hayeri. What's up, Bobak? How you doing today, buddy?
Hey guys, what's going on?
That was him. That literally sounded just like him. KJ the impersonator, Bobak. He impersonated you just now to a T. Somebody that might be complaining these days, Temple, their NIL collective on the struggle bus. Less than $50,000 was reported in 2022. That was reported there to the IRS. So with that being said, what do we do with these situations like this where collectives obviously aren't collectively
Collecting.
money?
But the collectives aren't collecting.
Yeah.
I just like they're called I remember when it was announced, it's called like the Tough Fund. I might be an acronym. I don't know. It's all caps, TUFF. Mm-hmm. But it's tough times for the Tough Fund. That's for sure right now, because they are, come on, that thing just sets itself up. But to be fair, reading about it, it sounds like it's a one-man gig. The guy who they interviewed about it, he's like, I'm a volunteer. We had realistic expectations. We're not going to get the big companies or the big donors necessarily donating seven figures. And looking at how folks are reacting on our CFB, it kind of underlines the fact that it's the haves versus the have-nots as we watch the NIL universe kind of mature. On one hand, you'll have a quarterback being attracted to potentially lucrative deals at other universities. And on the other side, you'll have Temple, which is an FBS program, but is struggling to raise tens of thousands of dollars that could even match it. And which really kind of underlines the fact that it almost creates perhaps almost a minor league within FBS, because if you're doing really well at Temple, what's going to keep another program from throwing some good NIL dollars your way and bringing you out to join their program? So I think that's been one of those things. And it was interesting, too, watching some of the reactions. Like there was a Cincinnati fan, Slap the Base Scott, who seems to indicate that he thinks Cincinnati has problems like that as well. Of course, Cincinnati's joining the Big 12, so they're stepping up to the big leagues, into the P5. They've obviously made the college football playoff a couple of seasons ago. But I think he's even concerned that, right now they have a person matching the first $50K in donations, but they have not reached that goal yet. And he doesn't think there's much of an appetite for NIL unless you're one of the power schools, to which a Northwestern fan, a realignment junkie, I think kind of, that includes you now. You're now one of us power schools, but welcome to the bottom half of the top five on behalf of the Northwestern fan. While the top half of FBS and the top third of D1 of college football, it's very different from the top half of the bottom half of the top half of the top third.
I'm literally looking at this and my head's spinning. I'm like, what is happening?
But yeah, no, I think that's it. That's what we're starting to see, the separation of haves versus have-nots. Meanwhile, we've talked about this before, but Nebraska, having struggled on the field, for quite a few seasons now, last time I saw, they were in the top 10 of NIL collectives in terms of the total amount of money brought in, because they are that classic blue blood with lots of fans, lots of love in that fan base, throwing money at them. And that keeps them, and it will obviously help Matt Rule as he starts his first season there. But meanwhile, you see, again, these other programs that have never historically been big money programs, at least in terms of boosters, struggling.
And I guess in the NIL space, would we expect anything different? It kind of is what it is, right? Now that we're seeing a metric on it, so to speak, with the valuations and the money and the collectives and everything else, would you anticipate that a school like Temple, some of these other schools, would be able to dollar up? Or is this pretty status quo in your opinion?
There's a couple of factors going into this. Could they status up with time? Maybe. I mean, isn't that the thing? It's like, how long does it take to galvanize a fan base? How many years does that take? How many decades does that take? Do you need fans who grew up when the team was starting to get good? Because Temple historically was not a great program. They got kicked out of the Big East infamously, and then they were let back in when it became the American because they were desperate for teams. And they've never had that historic success. Anytime someone would be successful there, like Matt Rule, for that matter, they would get poached by another program. So that historically has been an issue for them. So how long does it take to build that up? And, one of the other users, actually a Temple fan, Creamiest the Dreamiest, he pointed out that, they're a basketball school to begin with. So he's like 90% of any money we probably bring in are going to go to basketball players and not football players at Temple. So it's a conundrum for them down in Philly.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard at Temple. It's always been tough. Recruiting, keeping the guys, especially the guys in state. I was somebody who was down the street from Temple, my high school, and then I wound up going to Virginia Tech. It's tough sledding, but I think they can, do better than 50K. I mean, 50K is not a small amount, but it's a small amount in comparison to dishing it out to the athletes, how many athletes you got. So you just got to figure out how to be a little bit more innovative, partner with some other initiatives that's happening. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of businesses in the city of Philadelphia that, could get behind it. You just got to figure out how you want to market it. And I think it's more of a marketing issue than it is nobody wants to give. They just got to figure out how, because it can't be by the wayside. You're not going to be able to keep players, and you're not going to be able to recruit players if you can't have some type of an NIL program that provides some type of benefit. And like you said, it doesn't have to be all dollars. It could be, in-kind stuff. So you just got to figure that out.
I will say this. It is possible. I was very much embedded in the reporting of UAB when they took the death penalty and the football program went away and all that money went away and there was no money and it was complete turmoil and chaos and nobody wanted to belly up. And then, that was it. Everyone kind of wiped their hands of it. And then next thing you know, they're fundraising, they're getting money, they're rallying the troops. And now all of a sudden the money shows up magically, right? So the money is there. The opportunities are there. It's just how do you leverage it and do it the right way? And to your point, Bobak and KJ both, it's like, what is that time span? How do you get people on board? And I think the more that you can generate that increase in a program's obviously sort of value, generate more fandom, generate more, eyeballs, it becomes cyclical, right? But how do you do that if you can bring in bigger recruits and sort of bring up these kind of high profile opportunities through the NIL space is one way to do it.
Okay, check this out. I got an idea here. So I just remembered, Temple has a full campus in Japan. They're unique. They're the only American university that has a full, independent Temple University Japan. I only know because I had a friend who went there. And imagine they got to leverage a royal family. Why not get the Japanese emperor to donate? Because there's some unlimited NIL funds there. I mean, you can say, yeah, there's billionaires and then there's sovereign wealth. I mean, get that. I want to see the Emperor of Japan sponsor those Temple Owls, and they can maybe, they can brand it. Maybe I'm sure there's a Japanese species, do that. Then suddenly you got unlimited funds, let's go back to those late 80s, early 90s when the Japanese economy was roaring and they were just sponsoring everything. Hey, you want to come play? That was when they used to have all those college football games in Japan because they were just throwing money. Hey, 2 American teams, why don't you come play, in the Tokyo Dome or something? So that's what we need. Emperor of Japan, we know you're a longtime listener to NIL Now. We want you to donate some money to those Temple Owls and give them that opportunity. Yeah, it's synergy.
I like where you guys are going with this. Okay.
We're trying to work. We're trying to, innovate for them. They need some help.
Outside the box thinking.
Innovate. I like it. All right. Well, so we're gonna innovate something here with Miami because Miami's been innovative in our discussions every single week. It seems like Miami pops to the top of the list of our topics. So interesting. This is a 2-parter. So I'll dive right in on this, and then I'm just gonna let Bobak take it away and just give us the scoop from the Redditors. Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke considered transferring because of NIL frustrations at Miami. Well, maybe there was more money to be had elsewhere. Then after much speculation, Tyler Van Dyke decided, well, he's going to remain at Miami. because allegedly Alabama reached out to Van Dyke about becoming their starting quarterback, and NIL would be a factor on whether he decided to stay with the program. Well, Miami put an end to that. Kibosh. No more rumors. It's over. They put it up on social media. Tyler Van Dyke will be their quarterback. End of story.
And thus we get into the wonderful world of how people are reacting to this, because it's happening in parallel with the saga we've already talked about before with John Ruiz and Life Wallets, finances. They had to restate their earnings, and the NASDAQ isn't thrilled that they've been staying below $1 in share price. So some people wanted to make that connection. Is a NIL amount that seems to be at issue in those early reports, and what was Alabama potentially using to try and induce him to come over? Was that part of it? Honestly, it's not clear. I mean, one of the things is for Van Dyke, do you really want to go to Alabama? Because there's no way Nick Saban's going to guarantee you a spot. It's like you got to earn it with him. I mean, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. So imagine going there. But at the same time, timing-wise, earlier in the week, they were talking about and reporting how he had a great spring game. So it almost seemed like, wow, he's had a great spring game. Now he's available on the market. So suddenly is that when the other teams start, oh, maybe I would like to pick him up off the Miami roster. Again, going back to how RCFB's been looking at it, a lot of folks are trying to figure out what was going on with the money that everyone had associated with Miami in terms of the early years of NIL. Some of the rivals are having fun with that. Florida State fan, Spear the Fear 19, he's like, well, it looks like Ruiz may have lost the company's money. That's an overstatement in the extreme. Although Piano Fingerbanger, I love this, from Life Wallet to Life Alert. A lot of folks did not quite realize how this company was making its money. It was so much of it was based on suing companies suing insurance companies that should have paid for medical bills that Medicare or Medicaid ended up financing. That was their business model. That's where most of their money comes from. And that has been kind of the disappointment. So a lot of it, I think this growing kind of reporting that's been going on around it has been feeding into a frenzy of rival schools in the state of Florida as well as across the country. Because Miami, I respect Miami. I went to another school vaguely like it. I went to the University of Southern California, 2 private schools in cities filled with fair weather fans who love to be the bad boy and love to have people hate them. I'm a USC fan. We love that. They used to sell shirts when I was in school. At USC, we're not snobs. We're just better than you. Like that's why I think they should be in the same conference. The 2 teams get each other. So that said, I think there's a bit of schadenfreude across the board whenever Miami sounds like it's having problems. Another Florida State fan, he put it another way. I thought that was reasonable. So the just 10, it's like one guy will likely never be enough. They don't have enough at Miami. They don't seem to have enough big boosters behind them. Of course, an Oregon fan, Lemadian, had some real problems with the idea of one booster not being enough. Because we all know what Oregon's got behind them. So it turns out but of course, some folks said, well, at least he's got a real. Nike is a big company. There's no one arguing their earnings. While what we seem to have here is a bit of some interesting stuff. But Ruiz certainly loves being in the news because of all of it. He's absolutely become the NIL show, for better or worse, and becoming I don't want to say a poster child. That's a bit extreme. But now it's like he's become the story of like, well, what could go right and what could go wrong? Well, let's see what's going on with the John Ruiz show. And maybe, who knows, the story's still being written. Do not sue us. No. So we'll see where it's going. Maybe it'll turn around and we'll be like, man, remember when it was all wobbly that one year? Now it's looking great.
You're listening to NIL Now.
All right, it is now time to bring in our final guest of the show, Cara Lewis, of Virginia Tech volleyball player. So she's got an interesting story. Lewis transferred from University of Maryland, her home state, after playing 3 seasons with the Terrapins. And then she finished 4th on the team in kills this season. We're so lucky to have Cara on the show, as she is a Triumph athlete at Virginia Tech, works alongside KJ. Of course, KJ pulling some strings, getting this gal on the show. She signed a couple of deals recently with Dunkin Donuts and Buddy Bet. So thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for joining us and giving us some insight.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here today. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. Go Hokies. That's right.
Go.
I know. We got to get the Go Hokies plug in there, right?
Yeah.
I think really the first question I have for you is, What has it been like working with the collective at Virginia Tech as an athlete? You know, as someone that's obviously transitioned in your career, you go from Maryland, you come to Virginia Tech, you've had a tremendous run with the Hokies, and then getting this opportunity to really work and be involved in the NIL space with, Triumph NIL. What's that been like?
So I actually love working with Triumph NIL because I feel like they care about their athletes a lot. They've done the most for me than any other company has. My best interest is in their mind, like at all times. They know me as a person, which is kind of weird because like I've had little conversations with them, but they've seen me on the court. They've seen what I can do. They've seen how I talk to other people. And I feel like that's really special for them to get to learn each and every individual athlete. The opportunities they've provided me with are the podcast that I've had right now, which I've never thought about having. And that's been an exciting journey for me to be on right now.
And your experience after, coming to Virginia Tech, how has the coaches, like team administrators, spoken about NIL? Does it seem like it's a priority here, or like what's been your experience?
So my assistant coach, he's been very big on pressing NILs for us because he wants us to succeed in every aspect of our college careers. Administration hasn't been that big on it, but teammates and stuff, we've been excited when we do get little deals and every here and there.
Well, speaking of deals, you signing your deal with Dunkin Donuts and seeing your face on the orders, on the order board, what's that been like? That has to be exciting to see something like that come to fruition.
Yeah, so that's been very exciting, along with my picture in the tunnel. My teammates, like, when it first happened, they would always take pictures of the Dunkin board, like, oh my gosh, it's Cara, like, she owns Dunkin. And I'm like, no, that's not it. I don't own Dunkin. And they would call my order the Cara Lewis order. And I'm like, no, that's just what I like to get. But okay, whatever. It was really exciting seeing that support come to me because I think of volleyball as such like an overlooked sport. It has been for the past few years, especially being a female athlete. Getting this amount of recognition is extremely special. And I feel like it's boosting athletics towards a more progressive area and state.
I love that. So here's the question. What is the custom order from Dunkin, and how did you land on this order? I want to hear about it.
All right. So when I was younger, I would always go to Dunkin after school, which is kind of weird because I never thought I'd have a deal with Dunkin. Never even thought about it. And I would always get the powdered munchkins.
Ooh, yummy.
I love them. And I was never a big coffee drinker, but then I started eating like coffee ice cream. So then I was like, I kind of like how this tastes, right? So I kind of try to incorporate that into what I would get from Dunkin. And I ended up getting a frozen coffee. Like, it's pretty much a frappe with hazelnut pumps in it. And I love it. It tastes so good.
Oh, okay. So obviously you kind of created this special custom order and they delivered on that. I got to ask you, have you ever had the candied bacon that Dunkin Donuts offers?
I have not. After probably my sophomore year of college, I stopped eating meat a lot. I cut it out of my diet. It wasn't like purposely, it just happened. So, but it does sound amazing. Great.
When you mix the salty and sweet, and it might not be called candied bacon, that's what we call it in Alabama, where I currently reside, down in the deep South.
Wow.
Love me some candied bacon. I put it on a lot of things and enjoy it very, very much. But you can't go wrong with the munchkins. Always a fan favorite when you walk in there, and you can literally just pop like 12 of those and be like, oh, I'm good. No big deal. That wasn't too many calories, right?
And then I'm like, let me go get some more.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite flavored donuts?
Yeah, the powdered munchkins. And it has to be in munchkin form. It can't be a regular donut.
Oh, yeah. I agree. The munchkins, to me, just have a little bit more, I don't know. They're just a little bit...
Petite?
It's like...
Petite? Maybe flavorful, like less dry.
Yeah.
It's like dry out a bit.
Yeah.
Munchkins, yeah, there you go. They've got a little more moisture, like that cake-like feel, whereas some donuts, you just bite into them and it's like, I ain't feeling
I don't want that. Yeah, I love the munchkin.
So are you gals that's on here right now, do you like fall time, pumpkin spice. Are you guys pumpkin spice donut people? I am. That's why I'm asking.
I love pumpkin spice. Everything. I wish pumpkin spice was like an all year round thing because
for sure.
I love it.
When I go to the grocery store around that time of the year, I can't wait for them pumpkin. But it's not Dunkin', it's Krispy Kreme pumpkin spice. Oh my God. It's just
KJ, don't be telling Cara to cheat on Dunkin'.
No, not her.
Oh,
I'm talking about me. This is my preference.
Wait. My deal with Dunkin' is over. It was a winter thing. So I'm open to Krispy Kreme.
Exactly. Lauren, do you know the Dunkin' place? The donut place locally here? Cara Lewis?
Cara Lewis Donuts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yo.
I love Cara Lewis.
Cara Lewis. We about to do a Cara Lewis version. You see how this stuff come up?
Hey.
I mean, the CL, it's the CL. You got the CL, the Cara Lewis, the Cara Lee,
Yo,
like CL. What's up?
I got you. I'm gonna holler at them this week.
KJ, he's on it. Hey, this is where thoughts come to mind. This is where we really share some great insight. The last segment, we pretty much gave some innovative ideas as to how Temple could do some work in the NIL space and make some money and generate some revenue. So we're thought leaders here, and now we're just thinking outside the box here to get you better deals. And with that being said, so first and foremost, you transition from Maryland, you come to Virginia Tech, kind of looking back on that transition and just sort of the support that you've had. How has NIL and how has this support that you've been given, whether it's, from a monetary standpoint or really just from the sports space and in general, how has that really sort of validated your decision to transition into this new chapter at Virginia Tech as a Hokie and sort of what that looks like, kind of moving forward?
It was tough because my parents had both graduated from Maryland. My dad played basketball there, and my house was like 25 minutes away from the university. So entering the portal was kind of hard because I would always go home whenever I had a tough day, and knowing that I wouldn't have that anymore was like a big, it was tough for me. So leaving home was tough. My parents, of course, they didn't want me to be in a position where I wasn't happy, but at the same time, they wanted me to stay close to home because I'm their baby girl, and I've never been away from home. But their support throughout it has been great. Even though they didn't want me to leave, it was bittersweet. They love Virginia Tech. They love the Hokies. They love everything about this school. Even though they came from a different university, they're just like, I love how their alumni work together to build people up and provide jobs for people graduating at the moment. I felt just support from everywhere. My teammates, I love them. The people that work up in the SAPC, the Student Athlete Performance Center, and feed us every day, it's just a great place to be. I love it here.
I feel like Virginia Tech, it's where the heart is. It's home. It's home for me. It's obviously become home for KJ, and can't go wrong with it. So I'm all about it.
Go Hokies.
So let's talk about as far as the NIL space, what has it taught you so far as a student athlete that will help you probably after school and graduation, your networking and things like that?
Yeah, so it's definitely helped me learn how to manage time a little bit better. It's also helped me learn how to manage everything. I feel like I'm running my own business right now, if that makes sense, because I have to go through these deals, learn what content to create, what time I need to create it, go through all the analytics, when to post, where to post, what times to post. It helps me learn how things actually work in the real world, how to communicate with other people, because I was never big on communicating. If you'd asked me a year ago to be on a podcast right now, I'd be like, no, thank you. I'm terrified of public speaking and all that. So it's helped me learn how to communicate better and just manage time better. And I feel like it's helping me build my resume because as a kid or growing up, I never had time to work a job just because of sports and athletics. And now I feel like I have that opportunity to build my resume with NIL.
That's awesome. And I think, it's cool because it really does show that this NIL space is giving athletes opportunities to not only build financially, right? Or, product placement, whatever it is, whatever that NIL deal looks like. Because I think a lot of times the bottom line is people just immediately think NIL, money, right? But there's so many skills involved. And obviously seeing your big smile and your personality, I'm thinking there's no way this girl wasn't comfortable talking before. But just getting to see you do that, I think just awesome. So before we let you go, just tell us a little bit about your podcast and sort of what the foundation of it is and where we can also listen to it.
Okay. So my podcast is a work in progress. My first episode was about code switching, which is something everyone does. I feel like that was one of the most interesting topics I could cover for my first pilot episode, seen on triumphnil.com. But anyways, it's just a way for me to talk about my experiences, other people's experiences, and just relate to other people while giving them the platform to tell their truth and tell their story.
Cara, this was awesome conversation. Obviously, I love the great work that KJ and his team are doing there at Triumph NIL, giving you guys opportunities. And it's just fun to see the personalities and getting this opportunity to talk to you and other athletes that are part of this this group and just sort of giving you guys the tools and empowering you all to step outside your realm of just being on the court or on the field or whatever that is, to go out there and create opportunities for yourself. So we appreciate it. And of course, if you want to follow Cara, you can follow her on Instagram at _CXRX or on Twitter at XBabyGiraffe. Okay, so give us a little backstory on the baby giraffe thing. I got to hear about this.
Hey, okay, so when I was in like middle school, high school, I was like the tallest girl in class, of course. You know how it is, which is kind of weird because I'm short now. But
wait, you're short now? How tall are you?
No, she's not short. You're 6 anything. You can't say you're short.
No kidding.
Okay, well, in the volleyball world, I'm short for my position. So, yeah. But I was super clumsy, and I still kind of am. I have my moments where I'm, like, extremely clumsy. So I got the nickname Baby Giraffe from all of my friends in high school and middle school.
Aww,
so,
I love it.
Giraffe. Yeah.
I just want to, like,
and I love
I just
giraffes.
want to hug your neck and just a little baby giraffe. So cute. Oh, that's awesome. I was actually going to say, I love that. That is so
Thank
hip,
you.
so cool, very different. I love it. So I say embrace it, man. Embrace it all. And you're definitely not short. So that's I will counter you on that. I'm 5'9" though, and as a former gymnast, 5'9". I had the opposite problem of you, like way too tall to be a gymnast.
Yeah. No, my roommate, she was a gymnast and she was 5'9" at Maryland. I loved her, bro. I love gymnasts. Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were a gymnast.
You know, just doing some stuff, flipping around.
She's a former Rutgers gal.
Yeah, so obviously, the Maryland. Obviously, we would be competing against each other if you were still at Maryland. But hey, you were soaking it up with the Hokies, and I love it. And thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate the insight. Good luck with the podcast. Keep working hard. And of course, again, you can follow her on Twitter and on Instagram. And then follow us on Twitter at NIL Now Show. You can also follow us on Reddit. Tell a friend, let us know what you think about the show. Find next week's episode out where you listen to your podcast already. I'm Lauren Sisler. My co-host is Kevin Jones. A big thanks to our audio engineer, Colin Schmeling, our associate producer, Dean Zolkowski, and our executive producers, Richard Diamond, Selena Roberts, and Scott Broder. Until next week, we'll see ya.
Thanks for listening to NIL Now, presented by Headline Studio and Reddit.